Moin, Servus, and welcome to the channel, guys. Today is the chance for me to ride this beautiful CFMOTO MT-X in front of you. That is my bike right there, and now it's time for me to figure out whether I bought the wrong bike or the right bike, especially for off-road, because we are here on the beautiful TET Italy, and supposedly right around that corner we are going to face some gravel road. So let's have a look how that works out. I'm already a bit hyped, to be honest.
Yeah guys, this is of course just going to be a first impression review, as I only had a couple of hours available with the bike. On that note though, thanks again to Andreas for lending me the bike and allowing me to do this review. On that note, let's hop straight back onto the bike.
Good. Oh, much lighter. Good. There we go. Yeah, that should work. Foot pegs are much higher. Does it work for him there? Yep, he's following. Oh, that quick shifter, man. Wow. That's a smooth one. Quite a difference to my bike. Let's see how we get here through some twisties. Yeah, getting used to a new bike right away in these switchbacks, not so easy. No? Very different ergonomic. The legs are, or the foot pegs seem to be a bit higher, but more forward, so therefore the knee angle feels nicer. I find the bars quite close to me. That will be interesting to see what happens when we get onto some actual gravel roads now. Yep, that will be interesting to see how that goes. Yeah, new, different bike. Need to get used to the feeling. Ah, there we go, and right away into a switchback there. The standing position feels very strange. Tracked this nicely though. Yeah, I personally feel like the handlebars are too close to me because I have to hold on to the handlebars. I have to hold on too much to the handlebars. And accelerating, that feels a bit strange, but I'm also not yet used to the position, so okay. The front tire though feels nice, yeah, 21-inch, feels pretty beautiful, to be honest. The bike is doing a great job though here, feels very stable, can absolutely feel the front tire nicely. Let's get in through here to see the suspension. Doing a great job. Yeah, much tighter than on my GS. Yeah, this is, wow, this is a difference. Okay, I don't like that I have to hang on to the handlebars, but the bike just doesn't swim whatsoever. My GS with the 19-inch front is swimming a lot on something like that, and this one is just pulling through, so you can definitely notice the 21-inch. That's pretty awesome, yeah? The throttle response feels absolutely beautiful. No comparison to that MT-09 that I was riding recently. Maybe not exactly on level with my GS, but quite decent, definitely. So let's have a look when we are going downhill. Oh wow, yeah, you can absolutely steer the bike in a corner. Weight shifting is not that important. It just flows very nicely through this. I'm very impressed, to be honest. Yeah. As compared to my bike, don't really need to shift over to with your weight or anything. Just tractors through perfectly. Yeah, ergonomics, as said, standing ergonomics feels a bit strange, but very confidence inspiring generally down here. And also the quick shifter, wow, that is a smooth one. Yeah, here in first gear it's a bit on-off. Yeah, there you can notice the difference. But I guess the benefit with the GS is also the larger engine, which is more forgiving. It has more momentum when rotating, and therefore you do not notice the on-off throttle that much. Yep. That was the false neutral, okay. And there we have it. Okay, first impressions. Okay, so I do feel right away at home on this bike, I have to say. It's very, very easy to ride. I didn't need much time to get accommodated. You can't see anything off the dashboard though, because it's very, very low. Feels very different in that regard. Yep. Switch gear is fine, brakes feel good, clutch feels really nice. What I still need to test is how well the brakes feel when you go into the ABS. I haven't tested that yet, but as it seems we will have to go first onto some tarmac for the moment. So I have to test that later on, so now it's a good time to test the handling on the street, of course. But the handling feels decent. I have quite a lot less wind protection. I can notice that in comparison to the GS, because I'm wearing this mesh clothes right now and I can really notice the wind just blasting through the gear, which with the GS I would not at this speed at all because of the large wind protection. That is a good thing and a bad thing. Yeah? So for warm days you want to have that airflow, in colder days you do not want to have that airflow. Yeah, so I have to adopt my riding style a little bit. Yeah, she pulls nicely. No, there's not much to say about that. The engine braking is quite nice, as it slows you down nicely in my opinion. More than the GS, I've noticed that already. I'm riding with Andreas, the owner of this bike, for a couple of days already, and when he's riding in front of me, I can absolutely notice that he's decelerating much quicker without braking. Getting a feeling. Okay. Pulls nicely from second. I missed the shifter because I'm not yet used to the position. Okay, something else. The menu I will not discuss too much. I don't want to dive too much into the menu. That's something you would do eventually if you're the owner of the bike. I don't mind that too much. I do like though the vertical positioning of the display. Well, that looks quite cool. Different style to the GS, of course. She's doing that pretty nicely down here. Second gear slowly, yeah. On off throttle, absolutely no problem. But I would like to do a bit more spirited riding at this point. So we have to enjoy the scenery maybe a bit more. Yeah, the bike is not really doing anything wrong. It's not the most exhilarating bike maybe, but I don't think that you do anything wrong. And considering that he pays 10,000 or paid 10,000 euros pretty much exactly for this bike, with everything that is on it, like the crash protection and what else, that's a really, really crazy deal. And then you have the low slung fuel tank. I can notice some similarities in the handling to my Boxer, not as crazy as it is on my Boxer, of course, because it's more weight down there, of course, but still it handles nicely. Okay, when sitting down on the suspension, it is quite a bit harder, so I can feel each and every bump in this road. blasting into my back. I think there is where the suspension on my GS is superior. That's what you would expect at the price that the GS comes at, of course. But once again, for the price that you pay, this is quite impressive. Yeah? And then standing, when you're standing, or once you're standing, yeah, the bumps are not gone, but of course, due to the fact that you can buffer them a little bit with your feet and with your legs. Okay, yeah, this is where I can really notice the difference with the standing position. Again, I have to hold on somewhat to the bars, but it might be also because of that tank back that he has. So I don't really feel that comfortable there.
I will mention the handlebar position a couple more times in this video because I didn't know at the time of recording that it is possible to change the position of the handlebars. You can basically shift them more to the front, which is a pretty cool feature, and if I remember correctly, that's something that KTM offers as well. I guess that's where CFMOTO has the idea from. I have said on the bike now that Andreas has actually changed that position since the review, so please take my notes on the handlebar position with a little grain of salt, as it is possible to change it, and at least according to Andreas, it makes a pretty big difference in terms of riding, both on the road as well as off-road.
Yeah, this is really, Andreas pointed this out already, that you can basically steer the bike even off-road. You don't really need to shift the weight that much, and he's absolutely right. Big difference to the GS. And the GS, if you do not shift your weight properly, the 19-inch wheel will just wash out on you. Yeah, you have zero chance to catch it then. But here, you can actually use the handlebars to steer, which is a pretty nice thing. Feels very confidence-inspiring in that regard. Yeah, braking absolutely fine. Feels very stable when braking. It doesn't give you any headache there. And also now here on this terrain, the front tire is dancing a little bit, but feels way more stable than the GS, definitely. Yeah, you can redirect the bike nicely through weighting the packs as well, so you don't need to rely on the handlebars. So you can just give an impulse by one side, then to the other side, and then back there. Perfect. Very easy. Street riding, yes. So, very confidence inspiring, I have to say, for a 21-inch wheel. I've not ridden many of those, mainly 17 and 19-inch, and once on a 21-inch. It tilts in nicely. You have a good feeling for the front tire. I can't really say much negative about it. So, power, more than sufficient. It pulls really nice. There's more than enough power in this bike. I wouldn't need more necessarily, especially if you think about you have 10,000 euros that you pay for it. You have very nice off-road behavior. The engine pulls nicely from low. The power output is nice. I don't know what else to wish for. The suspension is maybe a little bit harsh in comparison to the GS, and of course it's manually adjusted. But still, keep in mind, this bike is like 15 to 16,000 euros cheaper than my bike. And it's not that bad in comparison, or that's a very poor way of saying it's actually pretty cool. and I do get quite a nice feeling from the bike generally. What I find a bit strange is on the ergonomics, the handlebar position. For me personally, it's too close. Also on street riding, I would like to have it slightly further forward, so you can lean a bit more into the bike, into the front of the bike, to get more feeling for the front. It's a bit vague in some situations. It's a bit vague in the front, therefore, because you can't really lean into the front tire, so you have to trust the tire. Speaking of the tire, we still have the standard OEM tire on this bike, which is some, I don't know, I don't remember the name, some Chinese tire. I haven't felt anything wrong with it. In the dirt it felt decent. Here on the street I can't complain about it. But what Andreas said, and I have to rely on his feedback in that regard, is that when we had some wet patches before on some of the streets, the rear tire tended to slide out a bit, but that might be also due to the traction control settings. It's like I can't really find something very negative about it. And again, I have to keep the price in mind, especially in comparison to that GS. I don't think I would be much less happy with this bike if I consider the price. Of course, I have a lot of luxury on that GS, and that bike fits me like a glove. I don't want to get rid of that bike in any time soon, because I just love that bike and I love how it rides, and I love the duality it provides, which I have mentioned multiple times before. But if I wasn't able to afford the GS myself, of course, this bike would be very high up on my list, especially since I have ridden the 890 sort of, so I've ridden the Husqvarna 901 Expedition, and that bike, man oh man, that gets hot. Yeah, the engine gets so ridiculously hot, even at like 20 degrees ambient temperature, and I don't feel anything like that on this bike. One thing I noticed now here on the street riding is that there are some more vibrations coming through the foot pegs, more than I'm used to on my GS. More than I'm used to on my GS. Depends a bit on the gear and the RPM you're riding in. So if you're in low RPM, you will not notice that. That's a that's a switchback I didn't expect it.
So at the beginning of the video, I asked the question whether I bought the wrong bike. I personally didn't. I absolutely love my GS, and you can hate me all for it. That's fine, because I ride that bike and I like it. But I think for a lot of people it would be actually the correct bike. Just to give you a quick example of Andreas riding or trying to ride away with my bike. Here you can see that little snippet of him struggling to get the bike onto the wheels. Granted, he has some physical problems in terms of being paraplegic. So don't roast him in the comments, please. But the weight difference is undeniable. And I think that's a big point for a lot of guys out there which are considering to buy a bike like this or just an adventure bike generally. And I guess that's a big and. If I had the possibility to ride way more off-road than I do, I would say I'm roughly a 20-80 guy, maybe even less. So 20% off-road, that is. I guess this would make sense because of the much larger front tire. I didn't really ever experience a 21-inch front tire on gravel or off-road in general. So this really was a revelation, to be honest. But then again, for the kind of riding I do, the 19-inch is perfectly fine. I will never take the GS into a position where I will struggle that much with the 19-inch. At least I don't think so. Who knows what the future will hold. And then for the street riding portion, the 19-inch is just not beatable. The 21 is perfectly fine, but I personally still prefer that 19-inch on my GS. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and then see you in the next video.